Hey everybody, this is Kyle with attackofthefanboy.com. I am here with Will, and this is Fallout 4. It's finally here, Will, after so many years
I know it's
of
been a long wait.
speculating. Yeah,
Been a long wait. Bethesda always has a RPG out for new consoles. 2 years is quite a while.
yeah, and I mean, we didn't know that it was coming for sure. We kind of did, and then finally the big E3 blowout. And then just a couple of months later, we actually have the game in our hands. So I've played a bunch, you've played even more. We're just going to talk about the game. This is me doing just kind of side missions and running through, and that's my lovely super mutant companion. So otherwise, we're just going to kind of chat about the game in general. So, general thoughts, Will.
I played this game on console. It doesn't
Yeah.
look like this.
So this is recorded on my PC, running at ultra 1080p, 60 frames per second. Will is playing. You've been alternating, right, between PS4 and Xbox, so you've
Yeah.
gotten full console experience. And yeah, you've been messaging me a lot of complaints and stuff, and I'm like,
I showed
it
you
looks
that.
great to
I
me.
showed you that. You know,
Yeah,
that,
you
that
showed me a
video
video
of
that was awful.
falling through the world and dying in the middle of a battle. There's stuff like that all over this game, and not in the funny way of, hey, that's a horse climbing up a mountain. It's like, hey, that's the frame rate going to 0. It's just not impressive on consoles from some standpoints. Like, AI enemies run into walls, stop fighting you right in the middle of combat. Your companions will stop following you. They'll just get hung up in the world. There's a
Yeah,
lot of stuff about the game that I'm not super impressed with.
a
Especially,
lot.
like you say, it's been a long time since
Yeah.
we've had one of these games, and you would expect, like, one of the things we're promised when these consoles come out is like, well, maybe we're not going to see much better graphics, but we're going to see like better AI and better use of the processing power in those ways. Bethesda didn't get that message, not at least for Fallout 4. I don't know what else to say, man. Like, I don't know if you're having those issues on PC with the AI and stuff, but it's not
So
fun.
yeah, and you'll see there's actually a moment in this video where the AI kind of glitches, but I will say I definitely haven't had as many issues. The companions are dumb. They're dumb as rocks. They'll stop following you. Definitely, there'll be enemies nearby. They won't really attack them. That definitely still happens on PC. I haven't had too many full-blown AI glitches.
I
But
have.
yeah, that could just be. I doubt that the PC really changes the AI all that much, but
Probably not.
maybe it's just a more stable experience, so I don't really run into it or notice it as much.
Yeah.
I have had a few, so
Yeah,
they're still there.
probably the AI is going to be hit and miss for everybody, right? No one's going to re-encounter the same errors over and over with that. Well, maybe they
Yeah,
will. Who
it's
knows?
still
But
it's still a Bethesda game. Essentially,
Yeah,
is what we're
def-
saying here.
definitely.
If anyone thought Bethesda had changed their ways, they were going to launch a totally stable game. It's not happening.
Yeah, well, the console versions are going to need some sort of patch because this is pre-launch, and I just can't see myself being the only person that is going to have these, especially Xbox One. PlayStation 4 seemed a little bit better, but I didn't play the PlayStation 4 version as much as I played the Xbox One version. I just kept grinding through the Xbox One version as the technical stuff kept happening. I was like, God damn.
Yeah, you were getting a little frustrated, but it's been pretty smooth on PC, and I think it looks it's not the best looking game out there, not even close, honestly. But I think that it does look good on PC. There's some nice lighting. The textures are decent. If you get up close, you kind of notice a little bit of blurriness and the usual kind of stuff with that. But in terms of the world being so large and expansive, I can forgive what I'm seeing here on the PC. If it was worse, like you're describing on console,
Well, look,
maybe
I mean, you
would
see
have
all
been
this
so
that's
forgiving.
going on right now on this video?
Yeah.
Where you're fighting feral ghouls. When that happens on the Xbox One, the frame rate goes to like 10 frames per second, 15 frames per second. It probably halves. It really looks bad.
Wow.
In motion.
This stayed 60
Now,
the entire time.
yeah, that's great for PC players. Like, PC players are probably going to love this game because, like, just looking at this YouTube video, I'm like, oh wow, that's super smooth. That's not the experience on consoles, at least it doesn't, you know, maybe they'll have a patch, maybe this is obviously pre-launch, so who knows. Bethesda definitely has issued patches for their games before, so maybe that will remedy some of the issues that I've been having with it. Not moving, it's a pretty game on consoles.
Yeah.
You know, it's a beautiful atmospheric world and Bethesda's really good at creating that. You've got the day-night cycle, you've got the cycle when like the nuclear storms roll in, and it's, you know, beautiful when nothing's going on, when you're just out roaming around in the wasteland and just not in combat situations, whereas I ran into the most issues at. Because as the game wears on, you know, Fallout fans will probably know, you've got, you know, multiple factions, and you've got things fighting one another, you've got companions running around the battlefield, you've got monsters, you've got raiders and the Brotherhood and other factions that are fighting. And when you've got all that stuff on screen, it just, at least on the Xbox One, takes a dump.
Yeah, you were bringing up some scenes that I hadn't come upon, which were kind of larger battles and stuff
Big
like
time.
that.
Some of the biggest stuff we've ever seen from the Fallout series. Very ambitious. If it ran,
Maybe overly ambitious.
At least for the consoles. I bet it. Judging from what it looks like on PC, where you had like 4 or 5 enemies on the screen right there, it might be okay.
Yeah,
because
and like I was telling you earlier, I mean, this is running at ultra. This is top graphics settings. If it does start bogging down, I just dial those back a little bit, and it should be fine.
Yeah, I'm not sure, you know, how they dial that back for Xbox One or PS4. We'll have to wait and see if other people are getting these issues, but you know, I don't want to focus too much more on that part of the game because, you know, there's a good game underneath some of that stuff.
Definitely.
This is, you know, structured kind of similarly to other Fallout games with different factions and branching storyline, but you've also got all the crafting stuff, which you kind of get into right away when you start the game.
Yeah, you have the workshop, you have the gun mods, armor mods. There, pretty much anything in this game, it feels like you can manipulate in some way.
Yeah, and not just. You can also cultivate, you know, towns and areas across the wasteland where you can recruit new people to come and, you know, do work on these areas that you set up. It's pretty impressive in that regard, but it kind of feels like something that maybe will be more well-rounded in the future. It's not as big.
And like a sequel, or you think
I think
DLC?
It's kind of just like maybe, I don't know, maybe DLC. DLC would definitely work just because, you know, you've got this big world, and they did it in Skyrim, but I mean, basically the way I kind of looked at Fallout 4 was, I mean, all Bethesda RPGs are kind of the same, right? I mean, they follow pretty familiar patterns. They have a lot of familiar stuff in them. I mean, just looking at this video, you've got very similar, you know, lock-picking mechanics, and the animations look very, very same as they do in Skyrim. But I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, where I was going, why I went off on that tangent.
Are you kind of talking about it because these mechanics are there, but they're not really integrated?
Oh, they did it in Skyrim, right? Yeah, they're not. And they don't get integrated. Like, there's never a point where you, at least to where I am, and I believe that I am right at the very end of the game. If I'm not right at the very end of the game, maybe there is just one big spot where they say, here's all the crafting. But, like, along 30 plus hours of playing this game, I didn't ever. There was only one spot where they're like, "You've got to go find this stuff to build this thing." And
I mean, I've really had to go out of my way whenever I wanted to. It's like I want to learn what these mechanics are, so I'm like, okay, well, let me mod some weapons. So I find a table and go to it, and I'm like, I can make like 2 things, so I make them, and then I move on and never go back to it, just because it doesn't feel necessary.
Yeah, it's because it's kind of half-baked. And, you find enough stuff in the world to not ever really need to go back and craft things, right? Like, you don't need to go craft grenades because you find grenades.
I've got grenades all over the place.
You can.
I have to stash them.
There are crafting stations. Yeah, that is what the balance that I've been having is I'm over my carrying capacity. Mm-hmm. Why would I want to make more shit?
Yeah.
I'm constantly finding that to be a problem for where I'm at in the game. But what I am also finding is that ammo is at a premium. I am constantly out of ammo as well.
I haven't run out of ammo too often, as long as I switch weapon types.
Well, yeah, I have to do that constantly. I don't know if it's the way that I'm playing, if I'm not going back, finding enough. I mean, I'm scavenging off of every body that every enemy that I take down still.
Maybe it's just that I'm still a little bit earlier in the game. I've been doing too much side questing and workshopping.
Yeah, that's the thing with these games. You can kind of like over-level yourself for them. And
that's usually what I do. I'll put over 100 hours into this by the time I'm done, but I'll spend most of my time just doing side quests and walking around in the wasteland looking for stuff to do, which you still can do, and it's a ton of fun to do that. If I'm going off on missions and I run into some building that looks a little weird, I'm like, I'll go inside, and all of a sudden I've got 2 hours of a quest that nothing prompted me to find that. I just stumbled across it.
Yeah, and then sometimes that is the other beautiful thing about these games is sometimes you just get sidetracked. That the word side mission, right? It truly in this game you can go off on some amazing quests that are just they don't have anything to do with like the end result of the game and the story that you're on. And I think we can tell people kind of like what the story for Fallout 4 is. I mean, the basics. I think they've kind of went over that, right? I mean,
yeah. There's a couple of trailers out there, and I mean, to start the game, it's not a super complicated story. It's only when you get a while in before it starts getting into the factions that you were talking to me about.
Yeah, that stuff branches off, and it does get, but it's still tied to the main story. Like the main thing that you're doing when you leave the vault. Did they like already explain that they take your son or no?
I don't know if that's been in any trailers, but I mean it's right at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, it's the first thing that happens to you basically. Yeah. So
that's kind of your quest.
Yeah, I mean that's like your main starting out point is they've got your son and you've got to go find him. They kill your wife, they got your son, and you've got to go find the people who did that.
Yeah.
And you head out on the wasteland with nothing. And I think again, Fallout does that very good. Does that very well at the onset.
It does a really good job of kind of keeping you directed while still giving you this huge open world. Like it got me from one city to the next very quickly, and by the time that I kind of started feeling comfortable with the game, I had a good understanding of where I needed to go for important stuff, which some of the open world games out there struggle to do. I kind of get lost at the very beginning.
Yeah, well, I mean, the first few hours I played, I didn't go to the first place you were supposed to go to. I was just wandering around, and I started doing the settlements because I just kind of figured that was going to be a bigger part. But as I kept progressing, it didn't really play out the way I thought it was going to. It just didn't play out where it mattered. All the recruiting that I did and the building that I did, it just didn't matter in the end.
Yeah, it's just been, and this, by the way, is one of those AI glitches. This guy just kind of runs into the fence and
that stuff happens the whole game. Like, it ruins the best fights. There was one fight where it was supposed to be hard. I got all geared up right before I entered the room, and then he just ran into the wall and I just shot him a bunch and it was over. And I'm kind of glad I didn't have to waste much time fighting him, but at the same time, it definitely ruins the experience in some ways, right? The challenge of it.
Oh, definitely. I mean,
those guys are tough.
That's
and you just get to sit
ready
there
for a tough battle. And I'm just it became tedious. I was just sitting here, firing away.
Yeah, you're like, I don't want to go any closer. I don't want to mess him up. He might stop going in that loop.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's that kind of stuff in this game that happens constantly. It's forgivable. It's unfortunate, but I mean, it really is forgivable for how fun it is in a lot of other aspects, like you said, just the exploration, and how deep that even towards the end game, like how it just blossoms out to being able to join different factions, go on many different side quests for, a few different factions. But Bethesda fans will be in pretty familiar territory, I think.
Yeah.
It's not a huge deviation from anything that they've ever done before. I mean, I'm personally kind of still conflicted. I haven't written my review for this yet, and I'm not sure. I don't know if this is the game I expected it to be. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I gotcha. It's a question of where your expectations should be now, because Bethesda has gotten away with a lot of this. Skyrim had some huge issues when it launched. Fallout 3 had huge issues when it launched. But should we be okay with that? Should we just say, "Oh, it's a Bethesda game"?
Well, some of the shit is funny, Kyle. Some of that shit is very funny, like a horse going up the hill. Oh, that's wacky. It's funny physics and stuff like that. But when there's so many things in this game that are not good that happen like that. From the stuff that I was talking about, the frame rate stuff, to the AI stuff that we just saw in the video. At some point, like, I guess it depends on the person, right? Some people are going to say, "Yeah, I can overlook that because I still had fun with this game," and fun I did have. But Yeah, I could see people being like that. I could totally see people saying, "Yeah, this game overcomes those issues with a bunch of gameplay systems, a deep, crafting system, a massive campaign, a big, beautiful world." Yeah, I can see people being in the same camp as you, but everyone will have that moment where they're like, "Fuck this." That was shitty. Or you die or lose progress or something like along those lines. Like the thing that happened to me. That was at a point where I'm like, how Bethesda games are. If you don't save, you're going back, way back. You're going back to something that might have happened 15 minutes before. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you lose a lot of progress when stuff like that happens, and people, including myself, definitely swore, "Fuck you."
Well, so what about some of the stuff that they changed? Do you think that they've changed the series for the better? And the first one that comes to mind is the power armor that I'm wearing right now, but I don't wear it super often. But what are your thoughts on the power armor?
The power armor and the way they integrated into the game right at the very beginning, I kind of liked early on, but I'd have to be, completely honest here. I didn't wear it that much.
Same here. And I think I know why I do, and it's because it is now a finite resource.
Yeah.
You have to get those cores, you have to get more power armor parts, and even if those are fairly abundant, I'm just a pack rat.
Yeah,
in
you
these
don't know
games.
when you are gonna run out.
Yeah. What if I
I
run
ran out. In
Did
the
you?
weird, yeah, definitely. But there's multiple armor sets
Yeah.
all over the world. Like I found one at the bottom of a lake.
You gotta point me to that lake.
I was just like, well, there's a plane in that lake. Maybe I should look at that plane. Oh, there's armor just standing down there. I thought it was something. I'm like,
Gotta help me.
what is that? Oh shit, it's power armor. Lets you get in it right there. Boom.
Oh, thank God.
No more
Someone's
rads
saying you're after me. Yes.
in the lake.
They're holding me.
Yeah.
But anyway,
that stuff is cool.
Yeah, definitely. The power armor stuff is amazing, but if you're like me, who's like, I'm just gonna run this power armor till it's out of juice, you never know. It shows you where it's at on the map, but if like you're underground in a dungeon or something like that and it runs out, you just gotta get out.
Yeah.
Or walk very slowly. That's the thing, right? If it runs out of power, it's like being over your carrying capacity, basically.
Yeah.
So
And,
it's
I mean,
interesting.
So yeah, and in case people didn't notice, in the bottom right, the second set of gears from the right is showing how many fusion cores I have and what my current fusion core is. So I started this mission at 100%, and I've used 50% of this fusion core, and I have 2 left in reserve. I think since I played this, I found 1 more. But those have been fairly hard to come by, and so even if there's tons out there, which I'm sure that there are,
There
I'm sure
are.
that there's
There
plenty
are.
out there, but something inside me goes, yeah, I'm just not going to use the power armor.
But it's for me, it hasn't necessarily been. I have more fusion cores now than I have know where power armors are. Like I've just lost them. There's one underneath somewhere in a like cavern. I know there's because you also can take pieces off of that. I don't know if you knew that, but
Yep.
like you can exchange the pieces as they get damaged. Like the Brotherhood has high-end pieces when they're introduced. There's you can customize all that stuff as well, but it's just a matter of like being able to keep that power armor in a place where you can re-access it.
Yeah. Yeah, I always, whenever I'm done with power armor, I always fast travel to one of my settlements and drop it there, just cause it makes me feel better.
It's very meticulous of you, but
I
like I
know.
said, I take it into a story mission or something that needs for me to finish it, and then I'm like, those dungeons usually round out to the exit, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh
So, I
fuck
mean-
it, I'm out of here.
I think it's a really cool mechanic. Don't get me wrong. I sound negative, but
Well, they use it in
I think it's
interesting
really cool.
ways, like it helps with radiation.
yeah,
So sometimes you have to use it, or a lot of there's a mission later on in the game where you're going like into a ground zero sort of blast zone, and their advice is like you either need to find power armor or take a bunch of rad X, and either one of those things would work. But so they also integrate it later on. Where you'll want to know where some is. But yeah, I actually finished probably the last third of the game without it.
yeah. I've been running around without it just because. So
But I like the green. I like the green glow flashlight too.
oh yeah, the whole UI is pretty great. Especially I like the way that you scavenge now, where the menu just pops up and you can just scroll through it and pick whatever you want.
Yeah,
You don't have to actually like open a separate menu and all that.
I've pressed B
I
500
do that up.
times.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you. Yes, I go right into my Pip-Boy at least probably 1 out of every 5 times I scavenge something.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot to manage. I think like these games have always been full of things to collect, but Bethesda figured it out with Skyrim, the Hearthfire, I think it was called, expansion, where they let people build houses, put the things that they find in the world in those houses, and they've just kind of got for the people who like Fallout games like that aspect of the game, of the collecting, the searching every drawer, the picking up every item.
Yeah, and I mean,
they've got that nailed, and the workshop
makes that 10 times better.
Right.
I mean,
and not only that, but like once you start, if you do, say for instance, you're like, okay, I'm getting invested in this world, and this is by Sanctuary, right?
Yeah, I'm about to head over to Sanctuary.
I want to make Sanctuary the best, right? You can scrap out that whole town. Take all the old junk, the cars, the buildings, the boards, the trees, the everything. And condense all those resources down to whatever it is, wood, steel, and build houses of your own design on plots of land after you you tear down these. All that stuff can be. You could spend 100 hours building Sanctuary into like the best city in the wasteland, but I don't know, like. There's no story reason to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, there's not much. It almost feels like the kind of mode where it would be passively online, kind of like the Metal Gear forward operating bases, where other players could come and attack you. Because you set up these defenses against raiders.
But I've never seen raiders come.
I haven't either. Yeah, and even if they do, they're just AI. There's no, like you said, there's no story reason for me to build this. So why am I building? And I do feel compelled to. I've spent a decent amount of time doing this. I just established the supply chain, so I think that's really going to change the way that I manage my towns. But looking back on it, I'm just like, oh, okay, why did I do all of that? It's an amazing system, but maybe it needs a DLC add-on that gives it some real reason to be there.
Indeed, yeah. I don't know how that you picked the exact same plot I did. I don't know how they would implement that. That's not up. I don't like from where I'm at in the story. I just don't know how they integrate something else to say, hey, there's a reason to keep on going.
Yeah,
but
I mean, it's a pretty robust system. I mean, looking into, you have the generators to make electricity. You even have like switches where if they're tripped, they do certain things. If they're not tripped, they do other things. It's sort of like Minecraft in the way that they've put in these things, where I can see players taking these and doing ridiculously amazing things.
Yeah, but like, as you're doing it in this video, like. You didn't find that it was a little bit cumbersome, like just a little bit off.
Yeah, you can see
not a crafting game.
Warping around, and I'm trying to make this wall extend that one, but it wants to close it off instead of attaching to the side of it. So
yeah, and there's all sorts of stuff like that. When I was trying to build something, I'm like, oh man, this is just not working the way that I want it to. So when you say like people are going to build amazing things. And it's going to be a painstaking process. Some of that stuff is like really cool. I think it worked in Skyrim because it was just predetermined, like prefab layouts. You just built levels. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. For me, I don't like if there would have been a big reason to do it for the story, I most certainly would have continued to do it because I was kind of getting into the whole building and recruiting because you can see on the UI on top you've got people, food, water, and you can build all those things, right? So you can build water pumps and you can plant crops and you can build towers to recruit people to the town and then you can tell those people once they get there, hey, I want you working on these crops, I want you working on the defense turrets or the barricades, and I want this, that, and the other, and you can pretty much run the entire town. But you can like call on these factions for help while you're in a battle.
Yeah, you can call on the story factions, or you can call on people from your settlement.
I believe it's just people from your settlement.
Okay, that's still pretty cool.
I never did it.
I haven't done that. That's the other, like, there's so many things that they added in here that are.
I did
really
it
cool.
one time, actually. I think the leader of the second in command at the Minutemen gives you a flare gun. I accidentally fired it at an enemy because I didn't have any ammo. Like, maybe this is just might work.
Set them on fire.
No, it didn't. It just didn't do anything. It said the Minutemen aren't available right now or something. So, yeah, I mean, irrespective of how, like, maybe sour I sound about this game, I'm having a great time with it.
And that's the same with me. Like, at the end of the day, I keep being critical of it. I keep finding little things. And yet, I put the last 5 hours into this without a break, without doing anything else. And it was great. It was a great time.
Oh, easily.
Loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we've been kind of discussing how we've been playing as we've been playing, and I think there's definitely some common denominator things that people love about these games. It's just so easy to lose yourself for a couple of hours in these worlds, and with all the things that they've given you, all the tools, it's even easier to do that. Whatever whatever your fancy is, whether it's setting up the towns or just going out and looking for the stuff that Bethesda's made. There's a lot of interesting stuff out there. It's a gigantic world.
You can see, I mean, I've got tons of perks that I need to get. There's a few in there that are really, really cool, so I'm gonna keep playing until I get them. If you looked at my map, there were huge sections where I haven't been.
Yeah, I say I'm at the end of the game, but my perk chart isn't even close. Like, not even close. But all these Bethesda role-playing games have kind of had a 20-hour main path.
Yeah. The main path is almost an afterthought to most players.
Yeah, for people who play these games, then that's what I'm looking forward to as a player, is getting the PC version and sitting down and having my real playthrough of Fallout. Where I do.
Where you just get lost.
Where I spend 300 hours in the game. Where you can just go back to it over and over. And this one feels like it has the most legs for that than any of the games before it. Now, just because of this sort of stuff, right? The crafting and the ability to continue working on whatever you want to. The other games kind of, you could clear those games out.
That makes sense. Right?
Yep.
And I don't think that this is going to have that problem. I think people are going to be able to put in those massive hours into this that they did in those previous games, and probably more.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's just... I discover new things every time that I sit down to play. Like I said, I just did supply lines, and I knew that was coming. I actually intentionally leveled up to get it, and then I did it, and I'm like, oh wow, this really changes things. And then I figured out how you can send your companions to different cities, and then you can use them as citizens. So like one settlement didn't have enough, so I was like, oh well, I'll send somebody over there and use him as my supply line, and that worked. And then just that changed how I was managing things alone. Yeah, every time that I play the game, I learned something new. That it's such a dense game, just full of so many things. Whether they get integrated in the story or not is another question. Whether you're going to, be compelled to use them, like this gun modification, that's another story. But if you want to dive into those things, they are there, and they work pretty well.
Most certainly. I think almost everything works well. I just don't... my major and probably only complaint is the technical stuff, honestly.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will.
It's very... You've got such an inviting, albeit hostile world, and then you have these things that just kind of take you out of that, the immersion of building something in this world, and you just see too much technical issues that just kind of pull you out of it. At least for me, that's always what happens with technical stuff, right? When games are getting so close to looking realistic, I mean, Fallout's probably not quite there, but they do a good job of pulling you and putting you in that world, but that stuff just takes you right out.
Yeah, and I mean, Bethesda's kind of gotten away with it because, like you said, some of their issues are fun, like putting a bucket on somebody's head and then being able to steal from them. That's kind of funny. You can kind of deal with that.
Hell yeah, that's funny.
Yeah,
I mean, that's something that's like, oh, I'm gonna do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that kind of stuff in this game. It's like, I'm just gonna sit here crouched until it says hidden, and then I'm gonna steal all this shit, and I'm gonna run out of here. I mean, I love that kind of stuff about these games. Just the broken, funny, stupid shit that you can break in them if you try hard enough. That stuff's great. But it's frame rate stuff. That's a different story. It takes away what could have been a very good shooter because they changed that stuff a lot in this game and kind of turned it into an afterthought.
Oh yeah, I mean, we didn't go into it too much, but the shooting actually does feel pretty good. It's not up to Halo or Destiny or Call of Duty standards, but I found myself not using VATS quite as much as I used to.
You don't need to.
Yeah, it works
because
well.
the actual shooting works this time, which is a big plus compared to Fallout New Vegas. It feels amazing in the combat, but again, I don't know how it plays on PC, but fast-moving stuff, it gets a little bit. It gets a little dicey.
You were talking about the feral ghouls. Those guys, I could imagine, are pretty tough. They're tough to track on PC, and if your frame rate's dropping, they're probably almost impossible. All right. Well, anything else that we haven't talked about with Fallout? Again, we sound a little critical, but I think that's just because we want to bring up these items. They're important things to note, but it is still Fallout.
Yeah, if you're like super nitpicky about technical stuff, you probably shouldn't be playing these games in the first place. You didn't like Skyrim. If that was the case, you probably didn't like the other Fallout games because they had this shit in them too. But that stuff hasn't been fixed. Like the buggy Bethesda game, still there.
Still there. All right. Well, check out attackofthefanboy.com for tons of coverage. We'll have guides. We'll have the full review up, and it's probably up by the time this video is available. But check it out, attackofthefanboy.com. This was Kyle and Will, and that was Fallout 4. Thanks.